The coffee catastrophized the morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Grandview Hotel's executive conference room. Casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table, Diana Hartley pushed her cleaning cart quietly along the hallway, mentally running through her checklist. Room 412 needed fresh towels, the third-floor corridor required vacuuming, and she had to finish before picking up Tommy from school at 3 o'clock. She'd been working at the Grandview for almost 2 years now, and she knew the rhythm of the place like her own heartbeat. The wealthy guests barely noticed her as she moved through their world, invisible in her plain gray uniform. That was fine with Diana. Invisible meant safe, and safe meant she could keep her job and provide for Tommy. The conference room door suddenly swung open. Just as Diana reached for her coffee thermos, she stumbled backward, and the thermos flew from her hands, spraying hot coffee across the expensive carpet and splashing onto a man's pristine white shirt and navy suit jacket. Time seemed to freeze. The man stood there, coffee dripping from his designer clothes, his face turning an alarming shade of red. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair swept back from his forehead and sharp blue eyes that now blazed with fury. Behind him, Diana could see a room full of people in business suits, all staring at the scene. "Are you completely incompetent?" The man exploded, his voice echoing through the hallway. "Do you have any idea how important this meeting is? This suit costs more than you probably make in a month." Diana felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm very sorry, sir." The door opened suddenly. "Let me help clean this up." She bent down to retrieve towels from her cart, but the man stepped closer, his anger not diminishing. "Help? You've already helped enough. Look at this disaster. I have Japanese investors in there waiting for a presentation. And now I look like I can't even walk through a hallway without getting attacked by incompetent hotel staff." Standing her ground, several other business people had emerged from the conference room now. Watching the confrontation with a mixture of curiosity and secondhand embarrassment, Diana recognized the look on their faces from countless similar situations over the years. They saw her uniform, her cleaning cart, her obvious lower status, and they assumed she deserved whatever treatment she received. But Diana had learned long ago that dignity wasn't something anyone could take from you unless you let them. She straightened up, meeting the man's angry gaze directly. "Sir, I apologize for the accident. It was unintentional. I'll have your clothes cleaned and returned to you immediately. But speaking to me this way won't change what happened. It will only show the people watching us who you really are." The man blinked, clearly not expecting a response. A woman with severe features and perfectly styled blonde hair stepped forward from the group. "Jonathan, perhaps we should reschedule while you change. This is clearly not going well." His name was Jonathan, Diana thought. Filing the information away as she began cleaning the carpet with efficient, practiced movements, Jonathan Pierce, though Diana didn't know his last name yet, looked at his business partner with frustration. "Veronica, we can't reschedule. The Tanaka Group is only in town today. I'll just have to present like this." "With coffee stains all over your shirt?" Veronica raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. "That will certainly make a strong first impression." An unexpected skill, Diana worked quickly, soaking up the coffee and applying spot treatment to the carpet. As she worked, she heard voices from inside the conference room, speaking in rapid Japanese. She couldn't help but understand what they were saying. "This American company seems very disorganized," one voice said. "Perhaps we should reconsider this investment." "I agree," another replied. "If they cannot even manage a simple meeting without chaos, how can they manage a multi-million-dollar project?" Without thinking, Diana spoke in fluent Japanese from where she knelt on the floor. "Please forgive the disruption. It was my fault entirely, not a reflection of the company's capabilities. I hope you will give them a fair opportunity to present their proposal." The hallway went completely silent. Jonathan stared at her as if she had suddenly sprouted wings. Veronica's mouth actually fell open. Inside the conference room, two Japanese men in impeccable suits appeared in the doorway, looking equally surprised. "You speak Japanese?" one of them asked, also in Japanese, his tone warming considerably. "Yes, sir," Diana replied, standing up and bowing respectfully in the traditional manner. I taught myself using library books and online resources. I apologize again for the accident. The older of the two Japanese men smiled for the first time. Your pronunciation is excellent. Where did you study? I didn't attend formal classes, Diana admitted, switching to English so the others could understand. I have a son who struggles with reading, so I've been learning different languages and teaching methods to help him. Japanese writing systems seemed like they might offer insights for working with his dyslexia. A mother's dedication, the atmosphere in the hallway shifted dramatically. The older Japanese investor looked at Diana with genuine interest now. You learned an entire language to help your child. That is a remarkable dedication. Jonathan Pierce stood there, coffee staining his expensive clothes, looking completely confused by the turn of events. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, clearly unsure what to say. Gregory Bennett, the hotel manager, appeared at the end of the hallway, alerted by the commotion. He took in the scene with a quick, experienced glance. Miss Hartley, is everything all right here? Everything's fine, Mr. Bennett, Diana said quietly. Just a small accident. I'll have it cleaned up in a few minutes. Gregory had always been kind to Diana. One of the few managers who actually learned his staff's names and treated them with respect. He looked at Jonathan Pierce with a carefully neutral expression. Mr. Pierce, I apologize for any inconvenience. Miss Hartley is one of our most reliable employees. If there's anything we can do to assist with your meeting, please let us know. The younger Japanese investor spoke up, his English heavily accented but clear. Actually, if this young woman is available, perhaps she could assist with translation? Our English is adequate, but for complex business terms, a translator would be helpful. Veronica jumped in before anyone else could respond. That won't be necessary. We have professional translators on standby. You have them here now? The older investor asked pointedly. We are ready to begin discussions immediately. Jonathan Pierce looked at Diana, really looked at her for the first time. She saw calculation in his eyes, weighing his obvious prejudice against his business needs. Diana could almost read his thoughts. This woman had just humiliated him. Had spoken back to him, had revealed him to be a judgmental person in front of important clients. But she also had a skill he desperately needed right now. Miss Hartley, he said, his voice tight with forced politeness. Would you be willing to assist with some translation work? We would compensate you, of course. Diana looked at the coffee stains she was still cleaning, at her cart full of cleaning supplies, at the group of wealthy business people watching her, like she was an interesting specimen in a zoo. She thought about Tommy, waiting at school. She thought about her rent payment due next week. She thought about the years of people talking down to her, treating her like she was stupid or worthless because she cleaned hotel rooms for a living. No, she said simply. The power of self-respect. Jonathan's eyes widened. Excuse me? I said no, thank you. Diana continued cleaning, not looking up. I have other work to complete, and I need to pick up my son from school this afternoon. Veronica let out a sharp laugh. You're turning down paid work? That's absurd. Diana straightened up, meeting Veronica's dismissive gaze. What's absurd is expecting someone to help you after you've treated them with disrespect. I may clean hotel rooms, but that doesn't mean I have to accept being spoken to like I'm worthless. The older Japanese investor smiled broadly and said something in Japanese to his companion, who nodded with approval. Then he turned to Jonathan. Mr. Pierce, I believe your meeting has already taught me something important about your company. The question is whether you will learn the same lesson. Jonathan stood there, his expensive suit ruined, his pride clearly wounded. Watching this hotel housekeeper walk away pushing her cleaning cart, the click of the cart's wheels on the marble floor seemed impossibly loud in the silent hallway. Gregory Bennett cleared his throat. Mr. Pierce, I'll send someone to collect your suit for cleaning. And perhaps we should discuss rescheduling your meeting after all. But the older investor shook his head. No rescheduling. We will return tomorrow at the same time. And Mr. Pierce, if you wish to have our business, I suggest you bring that remarkable young woman with you. A company that values intelligence regardless of job title is a company worth investing in. A company that does not well, that tells us everything we need to know. As the Japanese investors returned to the conference room to collect their belongings, Veronica turned on Jonathan. This is a disaster. You let a maid humiliate you in front of major investors. Your father would be ashamed." Jonathan wasn't listening. He was watching Diana disappear around the corner at the end of the hallway, already mentally recalculating everything he thought he knew about class, competence, and what really made someone worthy of respect. At 3:15 that afternoon, Diana held Tommy's hand as they walked home from school. Listening to him excitedly describe the drawing he made in art class, she didn't mention the incident at the hotel. There would be other jobs if she lost this one. What mattered was that Tommy saw his mother stand up for herself, saw her maintain her dignity even when someone tried to take it away. What Diana didn't know was that back at the Grandview Hotel, Jonathan Pierce was having the longest conversation of his life with Gregory Bennett, learning things about Diana Hartley that would change everything he thought he knew about success, intelligence, and what truly defined a person's worth. The coffee spill had been an accident, but what came next would be anything but accidental. The morning after Diana arrived at the Grandview Hotel the next morning, half expecting to find a termination notice waiting for her. Instead, Gregory Bennett called her into his office before her shift began. "Diana, please sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. His expression was unreadable, which made her nervous. "Mr. Bennett, about yesterday? I know I should have handled it differently." He held up his hand. "Actually, you handled it exactly right. I've been watching you work here for 2 years, Diana. You're punctual, thorough, respectful to everyone, even when they don't deserve it. Yesterday was the first time I've seen you stand up for yourself." Diana relaxed slightly, but remained cautious. "So I'm not being fired?" "Fired? No." Gregory leaned back in his chair. "In fact, I have an unusual request. Jonathan Pierce came to see me last night. He wants to meet with you this morning." Diana's stomach dropped. "To complain formally?" "To apologize," Gregory said, watching her reaction carefully, "and to ask for your help. Those Japanese investors, the Tanaka Group, they're insisting you be present at today's meeting. Without you, they won't sign the deal. It's worth approximately $40 million to Pierce Properties." The number was so large Diana couldn't quite process it. "Why would they care if I'm there?" "Because you impressed them," Gregory said simply. "Not just with your language skills, but with your character." Mr. Tanaka told Pierce that a company's true values are revealed in how it treats its lowest-paid workers. He wants to see if Pierce learned anything from yesterday. Diana sat quietly, thinking. Tommy's special reading program cost $300 a month. It's money she barely scraped together by working extra weekend shifts. The apartment building had just announced a rent increase. Her car needed new brakes. The practical part of her brain screamed at her to take whatever opportunity this represented, but the part that had raised a child alone, that had survived abandonment and struggled through years of being looked down on. That part hesitated. What exactly is Mr. Pierce asking me to do? The apology Jonathan Pierce looked different without his expensive suit. He wore dark jeans and a simple button-down shirt, and he looked like he hadn't slept much. He stood when Diana entered the small meeting room, and she noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "Miss Hartley, thank you for agreeing to meet with me." His voice was formal. "Careful," Mr. Bennett said. "You wanted to talk?" Diana replied. Remaining standing near the door, Jonathan took a deep breath. "I want to apologize for yesterday. There's no excuse for how I spoke to you. I was stressed about the meeting, but that doesn't justify treating another person with such disrespect." "I'm sorry." Diana studied his face, looking for signs of insincerity. She had heard plenty of apologies in her life, most of them empty. But Jonathan Pierce looked genuinely uncomfortable, like someone unaccustomed to admitting fault. "I accept your apology," she said finally. "Was there something else?" "Yes," he gestured to the chairs. "Please, sit. I need to explain the situation." Reluctantly, Diana sat. Jonathan remained standing, pacing slightly as he spoke. "The Tanaka Group represents the largest potential investment in my company's history. We've been negotiating for 6 months. Yesterday's meeting was supposed to finalize everything, and then I ruined it by acting like an arrogant fool." "You did," Diana agreed calmly. Jonathan stopped pacing, surprised by her directness. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. It was a short, sharp sound, but genuine. You don't pull punches, do you? I found that honesty is simpler than pretending, Diana said. What does this have to do with me? Mr. Tanaka called me last night. He said he would only proceed with the deal if you were present at today's meeting as a translator and cultural consultant. He wants to see if I'm capable of recognizing talent regardless of where it comes from. Diana raised her eyebrows. So this is a test. For you, yes? If I help you pass this test, you get $40 million. What do I get? The offer. Jonathan pulled a folder from his briefcase and set it on the table between them. I spoke with Gregory last night about your situation. He told me about your son, about the extra shifts you work, about your education before you had to drop out. Diana felt a flash of anger. He had no right to share my personal information. He didn't, Jonathan said quickly. He only confirmed things you mentioned yesterday. About teaching yourself Japanese to help your son with dyslexia. About using library books because you couldn't afford courses. I did some research after that. He opened the folder, revealing printed articles and academic papers. Did you know that Japanese teaching methods for kanji characters have been adapted to help children with reading difficulties in multiple languages? There's a program in California that's had remarkable success. Diana leaned forward despite herself, scanning the papers. She had read about similar approaches but never seen this specific research. The program costs $5,000, Jonathan continued, plus travel and accommodation for the initial 2-week intensive session. I'm offering you that, plus $10,000 in compensation for today's work. And if the deal goes through, I'll give you another $40,000 as a bonus. Diana's head spun. $55,000. It was more money than she had earned in the last 3 years combined. She could pay for Tommy's program, fix the car, build an emergency fund, maybe even take a few college classes. That's extremely generous, she said slowly. But I need to understand something. Are you offering me this because you recognize I have skills that are valuable, or because you're trying to buy your way out of looking bad? Jonathan sat down across from her, meeting her eyes directly. Honestly, it started as the second thing. I needed to fix a problem I created, but after talking to Gregory, thinking about how you spoke to those investors with more grace and cultural awareness than I've shown in 10 years of international business, I realized it should be the first thing. Should be isn't the same as is, Diana observed. You're right. Jonathan rubbed his face with both hands. Look, I'm not going to pretend I've suddenly become enlightened about class and privilege. I grew up wealthy. I went to elite schools. I've spent my whole life in rooms where everyone looked and sounded like me. Yesterday, you held up a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw. The decision. Diana stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Tommy was in his classroom, probably struggling through reading time while other kids found it easy. She thought about the opportunities she had lost, the dreams she had set aside, the years of being invisible. If I do this, she said without turning around, I need more than money. What do you need? Respect. She turned to face him. Not just from you, but from everyone in that room. I won't be treated like hired help or a novelty. If I'm there as a translator and cultural consultant, then that's my role, and everyone treats me accordingly. Jonathan nodded. Agreed. And I want it in writing. A proper contract. I've learned that verbal promises from wealthy people don't mean much. Fair enough. I'll have my lawyer draw something up within the hour. Diana moved back to the table, looking at the research papers again. Tell me about the Tanaka Group. What are they investing in? Jonathan blinked, clearly not expecting the question. We're developing a mixed-use property in downtown Seattle. Residential, commercial, and cultural spaces. The Tanaka Group specializes in integrating traditional cultural elements into modern urban design. And you think you can do that without understanding the culture you're trying to integrate? We have consultants. You have people who tell you what you want to hear, Diana corrected. There's a difference. If I'm going to help you today, I need to know you're actually committed to doing this right, not just making money. For the first time, Jonathan looked uncertain. I'm a businessman, Miss Hartley. Making money is what I do. And I'm a mother who cleans hotel rooms, Diana replied. But I still have standards. Your choice, Mr. Pierce. Do you want to earn that $40 million by actually deserving it, or by faking your way through? The meeting begins 3 hours later. Diana sat in the Grandview's executive conference room, wearing clothes that Gregory's wife had hastily lent her, a simple black dress and blazer that fit reasonably well. She had the contract in her bag, signed and notarized. Jonathan sat at the head of the table, flanked by Veronica and 2 other executives from Pierce Properties. The Tanaka Group arrived exactly on time. Mr. Tanaka. The older investor smiled when he saw Diana. Miss Hartley. What a pleasure to see you again. I hope Mr. Pierce has treated you with appropriate respect today, he has, Diana confirmed, bowing in the traditional greeting. Thank you for your consideration. Your presence here tells me much, Mr. Tanaka said, his eyes moving to Jonathan. Shall we begin? The meeting started smoothly enough. Jonathan presented the development plans with confidence, highlighting the design features and projected returns. But when he began describing the Asian-inspired cultural center planned for the property's ground floor, and Diana saw Mr. Tanaka's expression tighten. She leaned forward slightly. Excuse me, Mr. Pierce? May I clarify something with Mr. Tanaka? Veronica shot her a sharp look, but Jonathan nodded. Of course. Diana switched to Japanese. Mr. Tanaka, I notice you seem concerned about the cultural center description. May I ask what troubles you? Mr. Tanaka responded in Japanese, his tone appreciative. The design shows elements from Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Thai cultures, all mixed together randomly. It's like they think all Asian cultures are the same. It's disrespectful. Diana translated this for the room, watching Jonathan's face pale. I didn't realize, he began. But Diana gently interrupted.
Oh, Mr. Pierce.
Perhaps instead of a generic Asian cultural center, the space could be specifically designed to honor Japanese cultural elements. Given the Tanaka Group's expertise and investment, they could consult on authentic design choices that would make the space genuinely meaningful rather than superficial. She saw the idea click in Jonathan's mind. Mr. Tanaka, would you be interested in partnering on the cultural center's design? Not just as investors, but as cultural advisors. We could showcase authentic Japanese art, architecture, and community programming. Mr. Tanaka exchanged glances with his colleague, then nodded slowly. That would be acceptable. We would want significant input on all cultural elements. Absolutely, Jonathan agreed quickly. The hidden threat, the meeting continued for another 2 hours. With Diana translating complex business terms and occasionally offering cultural context that smoothed over potential misunderstandings. She watched Veronica grow increasingly tense, her polished smile becoming more fixed with each passing minute. During a brief break, Veronica cornered Diana in the hallway. You're clever, I'll give you that, but don't think this changes anything. After today, you'll go back to your mop and bucket, and we'll all forget you exist. Diana studied the other woman's perfectly made-up face, seeing insecurity beneath the aggression. I'm not trying to take anything from you, Miss Walsh. I'm just doing a job. Women like you always say that, Veronica hissed. Then suddenly you're dating the boss and thinking you belong in our world. But you don't. You never will. Before Diana could respond, Jonathan appeared in the hallway. Veronica, we're ready to resume. Diana, could you join us? As they walked back to the conference room, Diana noticed Jonathan glance at Veronica with an expression she couldn't quite read. Suspicion? Doubt? Something had shifted. The breaking point, the meeting concluded successfully. With the Tanaka Group agreeing to move forward with the investment, as everyone stood to exchange final pleasantries, Mr. Tanaka asked to speak with Diana privately, in a quiet corner of the room. He said in English, Miss Hartley, you have an unusual gift for bridging different worlds. Have you considered making this your career? Diana laughed softly. I'm a hotel housekeeper with a 6-year-old son. Mr. Tanaka. I don't have credentials for international business. Credentials are paper, he replied. Character and capability are what matter here. He handed her a business card. My company has a program for talented individuals who lack traditional education. If you're interested, contact me. Diana looked at the card, emotions swirling. Thank you. I'll think about it. As the Tanaka Group departed, Jonathan approached Diana with a check. Everything we agreed on, plus a bonus. You saved that deal, and I know it. Diana took the check, looking at the numbers that represented a different future for her and Tommy. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Jonathan, he said, I think we're past formalities. Maybe, Diana replied carefully. But let's not pretend one successful meeting erases the reality of who we are and where we come from. She was about to leave when Veronica's voice cut through the room. Jonathan, we need to discuss something urgent. In private, Diana saw the worry in Jonathan's eyes as he looked at his business partner. Something was wrong, something beyond cultural centers and investment deals. Diana, Jonathan said quickly, don't leave yet. I might need your help with something else. The revelation in Jonathan's office, Veronica stood with her arms crossed, her expression cold and calculating. Diana noticed a laptop open on the desk showing spreadsheets and financial documents. I've been reviewing the Tanaka deal paperwork, Veronica said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. And I found some interesting discrepancies in the numbers you presented. Jonathan frowned. What discrepancies? Projected costs that don't match our actual bids. Revenue projections that seem inflated. It's almost like someone has been manipulating the data. Veronica's eyes flicked to Diana. And coincidentally, these discrepancies only appeared after you brought in outside help. Diana felt her blood run cold. You're suggesting I altered financial documents? I never had access to them, didn't you? Veronica turned the laptop around. These files were accessed from a hotel employee terminal yesterday evening. After our little coffee incident, but before this morning's meeting, Jonathan looked between the two women, confusion evident on his face. That doesn't make sense. Diana wasn't here yesterday evening. Can you prove that? Veronica challenged. Diana's mind raced. Yesterday evening, she had been at Tommy's school for a parent-teacher conference, and at the library helping him with homework. She had witnesses, but the accusation alone was enough to plant doubt. This is absurd, Jonathan said. But Diana heard the uncertainty in his voice. Before she could defend herself, Gregory Bennett appeared at the office door, slightly out of breath. Mr. Pierce, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to speak with you immediately. It's about your business partner. Veronica's face went white. Gregory, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time. Gregory stepped into the office holding a folder. Last night, after our conversation about Diana, I did some routine checking of hotel security systems, Mr. Pierce. Did you authorize Veronica Walsh to access Pierce Properties' secure server from the hotel's business center at 11 p.m. last night? Jonathan straightened. No, why would she need to do that? That's what I wondered, Gregory said, opening the folder. So I checked the access logs. She downloaded and modified several files, including financial projections for the Tanaka deal. Then she accessed them again this morning from an employee terminal, making it look like someone else had tampered with them. The silence in the office was deafening. Veronica's carefully composed mask cracked. You have no right to spy on me. The hotel has every right to monitor its business center, Gregory replied calmly. And when I saw what you were doing, I felt obligated to inform Mr. Pierce. Jonathan moved to the laptop, examining the files with growing horror. Veronica, these numbers are completely false. If the Tanaka Group had signed based on this data, we would have been committing fraud. I was protecting the company, Veronica snapped. That woman, she pointed at Diana, she's a nobody. She doesn't belong in our world, and she was getting too much influence over you, so you tried to frame her. Jonathan's voice rose with anger. You tried to destroy her reputation and potentially sabotage a $40 million deal because of what? Jealousy? It's not jealousy, Veronica shouted. It's about maintaining standards, about keeping people in their proper places. Your father would understand that even if you don't. Diana watched the confrontation with a strange sense of detachment. This woman had tried to ruin her, to paint her as a criminal. All because she dared to be competent outside the narrow role society had assigned her. Jonathan pulled out his phone. I'm calling our lawyers. In security. Veronica, you're fired. And if there's any other evidence of fraud, I'll see you prosecuted. As security escorted Veronica from the building, Diana stood by the window, processing everything that had happened. In less than 24 hours, she had gone from invisible housekeeper to valued consultant to nearly being framed for corporate fraud. Jonathan approached her cautiously. Diana, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, it doesn't begin to cover this. No, it doesn't, Diana agreed. But understanding might. Understanding what? She turned to face him. Why someone like Veronica sees someone like me as a threat. She built her entire identity on being part of an exclusive club. When someone from outside shows they have value too, it threatens everything she believes about herself. Jonathan nodded slowly. That doesn't excuse what she did, no, but it explains it. Diana picked up her bag. I need to go. I'm already late picking up Tommy. Wait, Jonathan grabbed a notepad and wrote quickly. This is my personal number. I want to hire you as a legitimate cultural consultant for the Tanaka project. Proper salary, proper contract, proper respect. Will you at least think about it? Diana took the paper, folding it carefully. I'll think about it. But Jonathan, you need to understand something. Money and opportunity are wonderful, but they don't change who I am or where I come from. If you're offering me this job because you feel guilty or because you want to prove something to yourself, then I'm not interested. What if I'm offering it because you're genuinely the best person for the job? Then I'll consider it, Diana said. But first, I need to make sure my son has dinner and help him with his reading homework. Because that's who I am, regardless of anything else. As she left the building, Diana felt the weight of the check in her purse and the business cards in her pocket, one from Mr. Tanaka, one with Jonathan's number. Possibilities stretched before her like an open road. But she had learned long ago that the best possibilities were the ones you built yourself. One honest choice at a time. A new morning 2 weeks later. Diana stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of a blouse she had purchased from a thrift store downtown. It was professional but not pretentious, exactly the balance she wanted to strike. Today was her first official day as cultural consultant for the Tanaka project. The money from Jonathan had transformed their lives in small but significant ways. The car had new brakes. Tommy was enrolled in the California reading program with their first trip scheduled for next month. The rent was paid 3 months in advance. But Diana still worked her morning shifts at the Grandview, still pushed her cleaning cart through the hallways where wealthy people barely saw her. You look fancy, Tommy said from the doorway, his hair sticking up in 12 directions despite her best efforts to comb it down. Not fancy. Sweetheart. Professional. She bent to kiss his forehead. Remember Mrs. Chen from next door is picking you up from school today? I'll be home by dinner. Is this the job with the mean coffee man? Tommy asked with the brutal honesty of 6-year-olds. Diana smiled. He's not mean anymore. Or at least, he's trying not to be. The truth was more complicated. Over the past 2 weeks, Jonathan had called her 3 times to discuss project details. Always respectful, always careful to acknowledge her expertise. But Diana sensed something else beneath the professional courtesy, curiosity that made her cautious. She had seen this pattern before in the early days with Tommy's father. A wealthy man intrigued by someone different. Someone real. It always ended the same way, when reality became inconvenient. When their 2 worlds couldn't reconcile, the wealthy man would retreat to his comfortable life and leave destruction in his wake. Diana wasn't going to let that happen again. The office Pierce Properties occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Chicago. Diana had never been to the actual office before. She felt the familiar flutter of nervousness as she entered the gleaming lobby. The security guard checked her temporary ID badge with barely concealed skepticism. Cultural consultant? He read aloud, the word sounding suspicious in his mouth. 17th floor. The elevator was full of people in expensive suits carrying leather briefcases and talking on phones. About mergers and acquisitions, Diana clutched her canvas bag containing her laptop, notebooks, and the research material she had compiled. She was acutely aware of her thrift store blouse, her practical shoes, her complete lack of designer accessories. When the elevator doors opened on the 17th floor, she was greeted by a reception area that looked like something from a magazine. Modern art on the walls, furniture that probably costs more than her car, and a receptionist whose hair and makeup must have taken hours to perfect. "May I help you?" the receptionist asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I have a 9 o'clock meeting with Mr. Pierce." The receptionist's smile faltered slightly as she checked her computer. "Oh, yes, you're the consultant. I'll let him know you're here." Diana sat in one of the expensive chairs and waited, watching the office come to life around her. Young executives rushed past with coffee cups and folders. Assistants answered phones with practiced efficiency. Everyone moved with the confidence of people who belonged here, who had never doubted their right to occupy this space. "Diana?" Jonathan appeared from a hallway, smiling genuinely. He wore a charcoal suit, but had loosened his tie slightly, making him look more approachable than at their previous meetings. "Thank you for coming. How was the drive?" "Fine, thank you. Let me show you to your office." Dana blinked. "My office?" "Well, you can't be an effective consultant without proper workspace." He led her down a hallway lined with glass-walled offices. "I know it's temporary, just for the duration of this project, but I wanted you to have everything you need." He stopped at a corner office with windows overlooking the city. It was smaller than the executive offices, but still larger than Diana's entire living room. There was a desk with a new computer, bookshelves, and a small meeting table. "Jonathan, this is too much." "It's appropriate," he corrected gently. "You're working on a major project. You need appropriate resources." He paused. "Unless you're uncomfortable with it." Diana walked into the office, running her hand over the desk. Part of her wanted to refuse, to maintain the careful distance she had established. But another part, the part that had once dreamed of studying international relations, that had imagined a different life, whispered that maybe she deserved this space. "It's perfect," she said finally. "Thank you." The morning meeting included Diana, Jonathan, and 4 other team members from Pierce Properties. As Diana entered the conference room, she immediately felt the shift in atmosphere. The 2 architects, both men in their 50s, looked mildly curious. The project manager, a woman named Rebecca Thornton, offered a warm smile. But the finance director, a sharp-faced man named Douglas Winters, radiated obvious disapproval. "Everyone, this is Diana Hartley, our cultural consultant for the Tanaka project," Jonathan began. "Diana has extensive knowledge of Japanese culture and language, and she'll be working with us to ensure the cultural center is authentic and respectful." "Extensive knowledge," Douglas repeated, his tone making it sound like a question. "What are your credentials exactly, Miss Hartley? Which university did you attend?" Diana had been expecting this. "I don't have a formal degree, Mr. Winters. My knowledge comes from years of independent study." "Independent study," Douglas echoed, looking at Jonathan with barely concealed disdain. "So we're making major design decisions based on someone who read some books?" "Diana speaks fluent Japanese," Jonathan said, his voice hardening slightly. "She successfully facilitated our negotiations with the Tanaka Group. I trust her expertise because she speaks the language." Douglas laughed. "Jonathan, my housekeeper speaks Spanish. That doesn't make her qualified to consult on international projects." The room went silent. Diana felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her expression neutral. This was exactly what she had expected, what she had prepared for. Rebecca spoke up before Diana could respond. "Douglas, that's unnecessarily rude. Why don't we let Diana present her research and judge based on that?" Diana opened her laptop and pulled up the presentation she had spent the last week preparing. "Thank you, Miss Thornton. Gentlemen, if you'll look at the screen. I've compiled an analysis of successful cultural integration in mixed-use developments across the United States and Japan." For the next 30 minutes, Diana walked them through case studies, explaining which elements had resonated with both community members and investors and which had failed. She discussed the importance of consulting with local Japanese American communities, the difference between aesthetic appreciation and cultural appropriation, and the specific design elements that would make the cultural center feel authentic rather than decorative. By the time she finished, even Douglas looked grudgingly impressed. "Surprisingly thorough," he admitted, though his tone suggested he wished it weren't. "I'm glad you think so," Diana replied calmly. "I'd like to propose forming a community advisory board made up of local Japanese American leaders. artists, and historians. They should have input on every major design decision. One of the architects frowned. That could complicate the timeline. Too many voices, or it could ensure we don't waste time and money on designs that miss the mark, Diana countered. The Tanaka Group specifically wanted authentic integration. This is how we achieve that. Jonathan nodded. I agree. Diana, can you start identifying potential board members? I already have. She distributed a printed list. These are 15 community leaders I've contacted over the past 2 weeks. 10 have expressed interest in participating. Douglas examined the list, then looked at Diana with new respect. You've been busy. I take my work seriously, Mr. Winters. Regardless of where I learned to do it, the unexpected connection. After the meeting, Jonathan asked Diana to join him for lunch. She hesitated, aware of how it might look, but he added, I want to discuss the community board structure. Business only. They went to a small cafe 3 blocks from the office, far from the upscale restaurants where Jonathan usually entertained clients. He noticed her looking around curiously. I thought you might be more comfortable here, he explained. Less pretentious. I mean, less likely to have people who know you, Diana observed. Jonathan had the grace to look embarrassed. Both, maybe. I'm trying, Diana. I know I come from a completely different world than you. I'm learning how much I took for granted. They ordered sandwiches and coffee, sitting at a table by the window. For a few minutes, they discussed the advisory board logistics. But then Jonathan changed the subject. Can I ask you something personal? Diana tensed. You can ask. I might not answer, why do you still work at the Grandview? With what I'm paying you for this project, you could afford to quit. Because the project is temporary, Diana replied. And because I don't trust that this world you're inviting me into will last. When the Tanaka project ends, I need to have something solid to fall back on. Jonathan looked pained. You think I'm going to discard you once you're no longer useful? I think people make promises they believe they'll keep, and then circumstances change. Diana met his eyes steadily. I've learned to protect myself and my son. That means not putting all my faith in situations that seem too good to be true. Is that what this is? Too good to be true? Isn't it? Diana leaned forward. 2 weeks ago, I was cleaning hotel rooms. Now, I have an office in a downtown tower, and I'm consulting on a $40 million project. That doesn't happen to people like me, Jonathan. Not without complications. People like you, Jonathan repeated. You keep saying that, like there's some fundamental difference between us. There is, Diana said simply. You've never had to choose between buying groceries and paying for your child's medication. You've never been invisible. Never had people look through you like you don't exist. We might be working together now, but we're not the same. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he said finally. And I'm sorry if I've been naive about that. But Diana, I'm not interested in you because you're a project or a way to prove something about myself. I'm interested because you're the most genuine person I've met in years. Diana's heart skipped, but she forced herself to stay calm. Jonathan, don't what? Don't confuse professional respect with personal interest. Don't blur those lines. It never ends well. How do you know? Have you tried? Diana looked away, thinking of Tommy's father. Yes, once. With someone who thought I was an interesting distraction until his real life came calling. I won't let my son go through that again. The investigation that afternoon, while Diana was working in her new office, her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Miss Hartley. This is Detective Amanda Cross from the Chicago Police Department. I'm investigating some irregularities in the Westbridge Global case from 5 years ago. I understand you were involved? Diana's blood went cold. I was the one who reported the fraud. Yes, I know. New evidence has emerged suggesting there was more to the scheme than originally believed. Could you come in to discuss what you know? 2 hours later, Diana sat in a police station conference room, recounting the nightmare of 5 years ago. Detective Cross listened intently, taking notes. Miss Hartley, did you know that 3 of the executives from Westbridge have been under federal investigation for ongoing fraud? They didn't stop when the company collapsed. They just got better at hiding it. No, I didn't know that. And you probably don't know that one of them, Richard Caldwell, has been tracking your movements for the past several years. Diana felt sick. Tracking me? Why? Because you're the one person who could testify about the original scheme with credible evidence? They've been watching you, making sure you stayed quiet and invisible. Detective Cross pulled out surveillance photos. Images of Diana walking Tommy to school, working at the hotel, grocery shopping. This is why you lived in fear, the detective continued. Why you took jobs where you'd be overlooked. They made sure you knew they were watching, that speaking up would be dangerous. Why are you telling me this now? Because we're building a case, and we need your testimony. But more importantly, you need to know that working with Jonathan Pierce has put you back on their radar. They see you becoming visible again, and that makes them nervous. Diana thought of the opportunities she was building, the new life taking shape. Are you saying I should stop? Go back to being invisible? Detective Cross smiled slightly. No, I'm saying it's time to stop running. We can protect you, but we need you to be brave one more time. The confession that evening, Diana picked up Tommy from Mrs. Chen's apartment and held him tight. He squirmed away, laughing. Mom, you're squishing me. Sorry, baby. I just love you so much. After putting Tommy to bed, Diana sat at her tiny kitchen table and called Jonathan. He answered on the first ring. Diana, is everything okay? I need to tell you something about my past. She told him everything. About Westbridge, about the threats, about living in fear for 5 years, about the surveillance photos and the detective's warning. Jonathan listened without interrupting, and when she finished, there was a long silence. I'm sorry, she said finally. I should have told you before. If this creates problems for your company, I understand if you need to end my contract. End your contract. Jonathan's voice was sharp. Diana, I'm not ending anything. I'm calling my lawyers and arranging security. Jonathan, you don't need to do that. Yes, I do. Because you were right about something earlier. We come from different worlds. But that doesn't mean I can't use the resources I have to help protect you. Let me do this. Diana felt tears burning her eyes. Why? Why does this matter so much to you? Because you matter, Jonathan said simply. You stood up to corruption, even though it cost you everything. You rebuilt your life alone. You raised a son with special needs while working multiple jobs and teaching yourself languages. You're extraordinary, Diana, and I'll be damned if I let some criminals terrorize you into hiding again. Jonathan, I know what you're going to say. That I'm blurring professional and personal lines. That this is too complicated. But Diana, life is complicated. And pretending otherwise is just another form of hiding. Diana wiped her eyes, smiling despite everything. You're very stubborn. So are you. It's why we work.